those who don't know, I do have a Twitter account. And yes, I still call it Twitter because X is fucking stupid. But then Elon bought it. So then verification is worthless. Okay? That. Elon can kiss my fucking ass. Okay. By the way, this really isn't part of DSP news, but I forgot to talk about it.
Regardless of whether or not it's gaming news DSP, if you talk about a subject while the DSPN banner is on the screen, I'd like to think that it would be part of DSPN. If it has nothing to do with that, then maybe you should just get it off the screen. You know, that thing that you have 100% control over and can just turn off whenever you want.
So the other day, I did an impromptu and random poll on my Twitter account. For those who don't know, I do have a Twitter account. And yes, I still call it Twitter because X is fucking stupid.
Are you serious right now? You are quite literally one of the only people I have ever heard refer to Twitter as X since Elon bought the app. And now all of a sudden you want to sit here and pretend as if that's not the case, as if this entire time you've been calling it Twitter because the name X is stupid? I just don't understand why we have to lie about things that are so trivial, DSP. You are on record saying these things. You posted up these videos yourself of you referring to Twitter as X, but now you're gonna sit here and pretend like that's not the case. Like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, it's an entire meme in the detractor community. They call it the X app because that's how you say it. How would they have any idea that you pronounce it in such a stupid way if you weren't constantly referring to it as the X app?
It's twitter.com or x.com/ at they call me DSP, or just search for at they call me DSP over there. Okay. So FYI, I did a poll, and basically here's what I said. I said, curious question. Does anyone even care about me posting to X or Twitter anymore? I pretty much only use this for my schedule since Elon bought it, and being verified has lost all meaning. I have no idea why I even still have 27,000 followers on here. Thoughts?
Small pet peeve of mine when DSP says that this is basically what he said, but he just quote read the entire thing. There's no need for the word basically there. It's just filler. To me, basically would imply that you're going to save us some sort of time by not reading the entire thing, which we didn't need to begin with. Also, curious question is a little redundant because I don't think it's possible to have a question without some sort of curiosity. Both of those might seem a little nitpicky, but we're doing a goddamn segment on Twitter right now.
And the poll had 3 options. Number 1, just keep posting as is. Number 2, just post to YouTube, forget about X and Twitter. Or number 3, I just don't have a preference, okay? So, if you're not aware, when I first started on Twitter a long time ago, okay? Which was like, I want to say it was like 2010.
Oh my god, Grandpa's doing it again, you guys. He's telling a story about back in 2010. You know, we used to work at the helicopter company. He was white hot popular. I swear to God, I'm gonna go insane. How many times can I hear about shit from 2010 from this guy? Why do we need a history lesson every single time that we talk about any subject? And why is one of the subjects that gets a history lesson goddamn Twitter?
I only actually made a Twitter because my viewers wanted me to. They wanted a way to have a direct dialogue with me about topics and stuff. That wasn't in video comments, right? Back then, keep in mind, I wasn't a live streamer yet. So it wasn't like there were live streams we could have a conversation together back and forth on a daily basis. It was more, either you post up for my Ask the King show, right? Or you leave a video comment and you hope that I read it. There was no really direct line of contact with Phil. So I think that's really why people wanted my Twitter back in the day.
Okay, and that seems pretty normal. That seems pretty straightforward. I don't know why we had to go back to 2010 to explain that. That seems like something that could be true to this day about celebrities that people actually care about. Unlike DSP, obviously. But I love that instead of just being better at replying to the comments on his videos and actually addressing any of his fans on the very platform that they watch his content, he thought it was a better idea to create an entirely different account on an entirely different website. Seems like it would have just been easier to reply to your comments. I do it all of the time. I'm constantly liking and heart reacting and replying to comments. It's actually super fun. So shout out to everybody who leaves a comment.
Now, over the years, I've used Twitter for various different reasons. Sometimes I just used it to post up completely nonsensical stuff. Sometimes inflammatory, insulting stuff. All right? Sometimes I actually used it to post up intelligent stuff.
Yeah, I gotta press X to doubt on that one, DSP. I quite literally have never seen you post up anything of any sort of intelligence at all. So I definitely don't think that if you were ever going to post anything intelligent that it would be on Twitter. But I know for a fact that you have definitely posted up some very inflammatory things and has definitely incited some anger towards you on the internet through the use of Twitter. I mean, wasn't there an entire subplot to the DSP canon where you pissed off a bunch of people on Twitter by telling them that their favorite content creators that get games early are paid shills, and then you decided to double back on it and say that it was your depression, all because you were on a staycation in Seattle at the time and the weather was bad, so you couldn't go out and do things that you wanted to do, so you were angry about it? And I know I said wasn't there, as if there was any sort of question in my mind that that's the reality, but I know the lore. I know that that's what happened. So for anybody that didn't know that, absolutely take that as gospel. That is exactly what happened. DSP was telling other people that they were shills online simply because he was butthurt he couldn't enjoy his vacation.
For the most part, I use Twitter to post up my daily schedule. So at least people know that I have these games and ideas and streams coming up. And I usually post up there as a stream is going live, so people know what to expect on that live stream that's now live. It's like a trigger, so you know, oh, come on to the stream, okay?
And that is one of the lamest ways to use a social media platform, to simply just put up that you're making content or that your content is live. Like, anybody actually gives a shit. If they were that worried that they were going to miss your live, they would probably know your schedule by now, DSP. It doesn't change all that frequently. And just like on your live streams, there's no reason that you need to be posting up your schedule every single day on Twitter. I'm sure that just irritates anybody who actually follows you. And that's kind of the last thing that you can afford to do right now when so few people actually enjoy you or your content at this point.
Now, what's happened is over the years, I just stopped using it for various things. Like, I even had some tweets that went viral over the years. I had a tweet at the Oscars a few years ago during the Will Smith slap incident that got insane amounts of retweets and faves. People loved the tweet, right? But it was basically like social commentary on the whole situation of what had happened.
And he says that in a very dismissive tone, which just makes me know that he's completely missing the point in Twitter, because that's exactly what the site is kind of to be used for. It's so that you can talk about topics. It's so that you can actually address things that people care about, not just post up your schedule every single day. Nobody's gonna retweet or favorite your goddamn schedule. Nobody else wants to see it, and everybody who even gives a shit about you knows that nobody wants to see it. If you actually cared about people engaging with your posts on Twitter, then you would think that you would go out of your way to make posts that people want to share by either saying something that a lot of people can agree with or creating some post that people find funny and interesting and want to show other people. And I think that if you ask anybody, they're going to tell you that a schedule fits into neither of those categories.
So I know that if I wanted to use Twitter more seriously, I could. And I could get noticed if I felt like it.
That's a lot of confidence coming from you, DSP. And I think all of that confidence is unwarranted, because you'd think that you'd be able to say the same thing about your YouTube channel then, because you've got quite a few videos that have quite a lot of views on them. And at one point you were one of the most popular YouTubers on the entire website. But just like with your Twitter, you refused to actually take advantage of any of the opportunities that were presented to you when people were actually looking at your channel. So I'm gonna have to ask you to dial that confidence back from a 10 to about a 3, because I'm not quite sure how many people want to be caught retweeting something from the guy who cranked one out on stream in 2016.
And by the way, my Twitter account was verified. Why? Because actually I was being impersonated constantly by trolls and idiots. And so having the verified account made everyone know, hey, this is the real Phil. That's how I got verified. A lot of people wondered, how do you get verified on Twitter? Essentially, you had to prove that you're someone who is dramatically impersonated. So that way, if you own a business or an entity like I do, I say, hey, here's my business. I'm getting impersonated constantly. I need everyone to know this is my real account. And then they verified it for me. Okay, that's how it used to work anyway.
I always thought that you just had to be somebody, that you had to be somebody popular, not that you necessarily had to be someone that was heavily impersonated. I mean, maybe those things are one and the same, because obviously if you're a popular figure, somebody is going to try and pretend to be you online for whatever ill-gotten gains they can get. But I've never heard it said like that. I never heard anybody who got verified back in the day when that was the process, that it was because they were being impersonated and not just because Twitter wanted everybody to know that this was the real person because they were somebody of importance. But I guess you can just make make that another thing to add to the list of things that the detractors did that changed DSP's life. Detractors are the reason that he doesn't have members on his leaderboards anymore. Detractors are the reason that he's not gonna have any kids. Detractors are the ones that got him verified on Twitter. Detractors are the reason that he doesn't put up any Patreon only or members only content. And I want to say big ups to whatever commenter pointed that out on the last video, because it really made me realize how much detractors pull his strings. He always says that he's the person that's in charge of his content and nobody is going to tell him what to do, but the trolls and detractors are the ones that are constantly pushing him in every direction that he goes. And when you lay it all out like that, it made a lot of sense.
So, being that I was one of the few YouTubers with a verified Twitter account, a lot of others had tried to get it verified for years and just couldn't. People actually paid attention to my tweets, you know, even though I didn't even use it that much. But then Elon bought it, right? And when Elon essentially bought the site, he changed so much about it that now the site is almost unusable for someone like me. I'll give you some examples. He made it so that no more verified users based on any kind of useful criteria. You just buy it. Oh, if you just spend money on the site, now you're verified. So what does it mean to be verified? Literally nothing. Everyone can be verified. There could be 400 impersonators of me that are all verified. So then verification is worthless, okay?
I just think that it's so funny that people like DSP are still seething and coping over the fact that their verified blue checkmark was taken away, or at least diminished in whatever value it held to them. Because I thought the entire thing was so stupid anyway. It was to verify that they were actually the person. I understand what that means in concept, but isn't every single person's @ unique to them anyway? So if you really wanted to verify that you were talking to the real person or reading the real person's tweets, you could have just checked their handle the entire time. You never needed a blue check mark. The whole thing just seemed dumb to me anyways, as somebody who didn't use Twitter anyway, and the way that some of those celebrities back in the day were touting their Twitter all of the time was just obnoxious. I'm actually really happy that so many people quit using Twitter and hate on it so much now. It's just another terrible social media site that belongs in the trash can, if you ask me.
People who pay now get their tweets amplified, meaning someone who pays for the check mark actually will always get priority, and people will see their tweets way more than someone who's not. Not saying that people who aren't verified never get seen, but it's incredibly hard.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to post something that people actually want to see or pay up, DSP. And it's really not all that different from pretty much every other website at this point. Hell, even during a legitimate Google search, the top results are always paid, sponsored, advertisement style answers. That's just the way that the internet works now, unfortunately. To think that Twitter is any different from the rest of it, you'd just be fooling yourself.
And it's funny to me because there's people out there who outright hate Elon Musk and hate everything he stands for, and they pay for the check mark because they've resigned themselves to the fact that they are a slave to social media. They need people to recognize them on social media, so they pay him anyway, even though they claim that they hate this guy's guts.
And I would agree with you that it is funny, DSP, if it wasn't incredibly ironic coming from you. Because you are the same person that is constantly complaining about YouTube and all of the things that they are supposedly messing up. All of the things that you're constantly calling out and saying that they're only book smart and not street smart, and they don't know how to operate their business, they don't know their own user base. But yet, don't you pay for YouTube Premium? Aren't you constantly shilling YouTube Premium without actually being paid for it like a normal sponsor would? Like I said, it's just ironic and incredibly hypocritical.
So ever since this happened, I essentially said, you listen, I just don't see the point of using Twitter anymore. My tweets would never get seen regardless because I'm not paying for a blue check mark. There's no real advantage to having it unless you're going to be using Twitter frequently for stuff that you feel is important. And all I do is I post up my schedule, right?
But I thought that your schedule was important, DSP. I thought that that's why you had to cover it every single day on your stream so everybody knew when you were going to be streaming. Now all of a sudden it's not important enough to post up on Twitter and be seen? I mean, you've even gone as far as to say that if you didn't cover your schedule every day on the pre-stream, that people wouldn't know what you're playing when you were playing it, and it was going to hurt the business. Is the success of your business not important enough to you to give Elon Musk $10 a month or whatever for your stupid checkmark? It's always strange to me how you can apply anything that DSP said in the past to the current, and it is 100% without fail going to make 0 sense and contradict itself.
So I had enough of it, and I said, I'm just not going to use this thing anymore. You know, I'm literally just going to post up my schedule and when my streams are live, and that's it. So I've been doing that for about a year, but now I've posted a lot more on the community tab of my YouTube channels. I feel like if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel and you want to be in the know, I'll post up stuff to my community tab. That way you don't have to go to Twitter to find out. You can just be subscribed to that channel that you're interested in, and that's how you're going to get, you know, the information about me. So that's how I've done it for about a year, and it seems to me like it's been working, right?
Okay, so you posted your YouTube community page instead of on Twitter, and everything seems to be working out. You think that that's a better system. So what is the hangup? If Twitter is genuinely a social media that you're not interested in using, then why do you insist on asking people if they care if you use it? It really shouldn't be up to them. If you don't want to use a social media, then you just don't. At least that's how I would imagine that normal people operate. If there seems to be no benefit to using it, I don't know why you would force yourself to. But what do I know? I'm not a very legitimate businessman like DSP with a finance degree.
But what I'm noticing is that literally, I'm not kidding, I have 27,000 followers on Twitter. And they're all probably legacy followers. These aren't new people following me because I don't post anything of interest on there. If you're already subscribed to my YouTube channels, you don't need to follow my Twitter. Get it? But with 27,000 followers, how many people realistically actively still follow my Twitter, right?
What kind of a question is that? You have 27,000 followers. How many of them still follow your Twitter? 27,000, stupid. If the question that you actually mean to ask is how many of them give a shit what you post, how many of them are actually looking for your tweets, probably zero, brother. Because I cannot stress this enough. He is literally just posting his schedule just about every single day like he does on the stream. I don't think that's what people go to Twitter for. I don't think that anybody's actually interested in that content on their social media page like that. When he decided to exclusively use his Twitter like that, I thought it was a very strange thing to do, because he absolutely could have been discussing some of the latest gaming news. He absolutely could have been talking about how he felt about some of these games in greater detail than in his streams. He could have answered questions from anybody that actually had questions for him. But instead, he said screw all of that. He said screw actually trying to come up with any sort of social media content for people who genuinely like me to actually engage with.
So I did this poll, and here's the results, all right? 590 votes. That's all I got. In 24 hours, with 27,000 followers, only 590 people bothered to vote. Think about that. So no one cares about Twitter anymore. Essentially, Twitter has gone boo down, and no one cares.
Is that what you actually took out of that DSP? You saw the poll results from one random poll that you randomly decided to post, and all of a sudden you think that nobody cares about Twitter as a whole simply because of those results? How big is your ego? How much do you think that you actually matter in the grand scheme of things? Because I can tell you it's far less than you think, just going based off of what you said there. But that mindset actually explains a lot about how he talks about these other companies. Because he's constantly talking about how nobody cares about Twitch anymore and it's the worst place to stream. And I wonder if that's simply because nobody is watching DSP Space Gaming over there anymore, simply because he doesn't actually stream there. He's constantly talking about how YouTube is down in the dumps and their website is practically falling apart and they don't know what they're doing. And now I have to wonder if that's because he has 200,000 subs and only about 1,000 views per video, if that. Because that's the next logical step when listening to the conclusion that DSP came up with. I know we talk about this all the time, but the guy is completely delusional, living in his own reality that he's made up all for himself.
Which I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. Elon has killed the fucking business. No one follows it anymore because no one gives a shit. Here's the poll results, by the way. No preference, 22%. So 22% said, I just don't give a shit. Okay.
And if you ask me, that 22% is the smartest out of all of them. Because that's the only logical answer when you see a DSP poll scroll across your Twitter timeline. How could you even begin to give a shit? How could you even start to care?
Just post to YouTube only. Don't post on Twitter anymore. 27%. All right. And then 51% said keep posting here as is. So if you take a look at that, 590 votes, 51% would be what? Like around roughly 300 people said, keep posting on Twitter. And 22% said, I don't even have a preference, right? And that would be what? Like another 100? So essentially 400 people actively care about me on Twitter.
And I think that that's a very strange way to put it, to say that only 400 people care about you on Twitter. He could have worded that any other way. And maybe he meant only 400 people cared about him being on Twitter, but both times that I've heard him say that now, it stuck out like a sore thumb. It sounds so pitiful. To get online and make your content, and in your content start talking about how many people care about you on the internet. I don't know, man. It's just a bad look. And if that's not how you meant it, then you need to be working on how you come across and the words that you use. Because for somebody who talks all day long, every single day, nonstop, you seem to flub over your words all the time and say things that you don't necessarily mean. And that's really just a recipe for disaster and has been known to get you in trouble in the past.
And that's it. So just think about this. I went from having 27,000 followers. When I would post up tweets, I would actually get hundreds to thousands of likes and retweets depending on the tweet, but usually I would get a lot of attention on my tweets. And since Elon bought Twitter, now only 400 people actually care about Twitter out of 27,000.
And this is just misrepresenting what this actually was. This was only 400 people cared whether or not you specifically posted on Twitter out of your 27,000 followers on this one random poll that you just decided to do out of the blue. I don't think that this was a very scientific method, DSP. I don't think that you can actually make any sort of conclusion based off of these results. I don't think that this necessarily follows the scientific method, and it's definitely not going to pass the peer review section. And once again, he's conflating this engagement on this one random poll to people's care about Twitter in general, when that's just not the case, obviously. There's a very large user base for Twitter that doesn't even know that DSP exists, so how is he going to assume that none of those people care about Twitter simply because they couldn't be bothered to vote on his stupid poll that they didn't even know existed? This whole segment just seems to be a seethe and cope because nobody gives a shit about DSP on this random social media website. Sorry, DSP, you're not as popular as you used to be. Why don't you just get over it and keep it pushing?
Wow. By the way, Tesla's not doing so well either. Tesla is tanking right now. All of their products are failing. They're not delivering the product they've promised. Their sales numbers and stock prices are down. Mr. Musk is in a bad way. He's just ignoring it and not talking about it. But anyway.
And I love this segment from DSP because I'm not an Elon Musk fan myself. I'm not here to defend the guy. But all of those things could be said about DSP as well. The DSP space gaming stocks aren't doing so well. He's not delivering on the quality gameplay that he promised so many years ago, and he hasn't been for a very long time, if ever. His views are down, his money is down. And instead of addressing it, he's just refusing to actually talk about it at all. Maybe the reason that DSP dislikes Elon Musk so much is because he sees so much of himself in Musk. And only when those traits are displayed on somebody else does he realize how awful they actually are. Because DSP lacks any sort of self-awareness, as all lolcows typically do. And I want to make it clear that I'm not necessarily saying that Elon Musk and DSP are one and the same, because Elon Musk has very clearly reached heights and successes that DSP couldn't even fathom. I'm just saying all of the flaws that DSP seems to be pointing out when it comes to Elon Musk are the exact same flaws that he seems to be suffering from himself.
Excuse me. Sorry, there's something in my throat. So yeah, so I'll be honest with you guys. It really is dumb as shit that the business has tanked the way it has, and I'm not gonna put effort or anything into it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna keep going forward as I have. I'm going to just post up my schedule and post up when a stream is live, and I guess that's it. There's really no other reason to ever post a thought or anything on that site. It seems to be a complete waste of time.
If you ask me, there was never a point to posting on Twitter, because just as with all social medias, it's just a time killer. It's pretty much there just for memes. But I want to point out that for once, 672 actually had something semi-intelligent to say, and I'm not going to scroll back up to see it, I'm just going to read it to you, sorry. He says it's because you have replies turned off. Once most people see that you can't reply to your tweets, they don't even bother engaging them. And that's an entire aspect of Twitter that DSP didn't even address. The fact that most people can't even engage with DSP on Twitter even if they wanted to. I mean, he's probably got half the site blocked at this point, and all of the people that don't have him blocked probably don't even know who he is. And then anybody that does actually know who he is can't even reply anyway. So what would even be the point of following DSP on Twitter or trying to engage in any of his posts? It would just be a large waste of time. More so than normal posting on Twitter is.
Oh, by the way, yes, Coop, listen. I'm not saying that Twitter was great beforehand either. Before Elon owned it, it also had a lot of issues. Don't get me wrong. But the point I'm making is that basically it was a usable site that functioned properly, and you could actually use it to get noticed and get attention and get your thoughts heard. Now you cannot. The site has literally suppressed everyone who doesn't pay for a blue check mark. I mean, case in point, I have 27,000 followers on Twitter, and 590 people voted on my poll in 24 hours.
And this is just confirmation that DSP is extracting information from this poll that just isn't true. Because in the span of 24 hours, only 500 people voted on some random ass poll that DSP posted. All of a sudden, it's proof that he's being suppressed in the Twitter style algorithm. Get over yourself, DSP. How many hundreds of thousands of posts do you think people scroll by without ever engaging with, regardless of who the person is? The only actual conclusion that can be reached is that the 27,000 followers that you have on Twitter is entirely inflated and not an accurate representation of how many people genuinely care about what you have to say on Twitter, which really just goes in line with how many subscribers you have on your YouTube channel.
No one sees my account, no one cares. Which, again, I'm not complaining. I'm just stating a fact that I don't think there's a point to using that site for anything significant at this point, unless you're just going to pay for it. Fuck that. Elon can kiss my fucking ass. So anyway, all right, let's continue.
I agree, DSP. Let's continue. So, of course, the result of that segment is that DSP is going to change nothing and is going to continue to do the same thing that he's been doing on Twitter, despite thinking that it's a waste of his time and he doesn't actually value the social media at all. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, Elon agrees. And while that might be the end of this weird Twitter segment that we've been on, it's not the end of the video because I want to take a look at some of the comments from the last video. So, of course, it's big ups to the 60 skulls. Fate's Frozen Flame says, him referring to his dents as a revolving door is really telling how he views people as expendable. Like he let that mask slip, there is always another dent around the corner for him to exploit for his own gain and move on when they are used up to him. And that really is exactly how he views all of these people in his audience that are constantly funding his vices. They are completely expendable and will continue to be for as long as DSP is on the internet, because that's how it's always been, so that's how it always will be. Until of course it's not, obviously. Greg of the Lake says if Phil doesn't want to take advice from his audience, that's his decision. The problem is he can't respond without being insulting and name calling. If he treated his fans with some actual respect, he probably wouldn't chase so many away. And I feel like that's always been a thing with DSP. It's not enough that he simply disagree with you and think that you're wrong, but he has to tell you that you're stupid, and he has to explain to you why he thinks you're wrong factually, as if he's some sort of arbiter on what is and isn't a good idea. And Paul Turner 4684 says, generally I think that there's just an air of disrespect that follows DSP around. He doesn't respect his audience, so on some level they don't respect him. One Minuteman thought he had some latitude because he's been fueling Phil's addictions for years. Too bad for him, he never realized that DSP's mantra is, what have you done for me lately? And I think that there's some truth to that as well, because I think that the relationship between a content creator and their audience is often reciprocated. You can usually tell how much a content creator actually cares about their audience and the product that they're putting forward in the form of their content. You can often tell how genuine they are. And unfortunately for DSP, it comes through very clearly that he doesn't care about his content, and he most definitely isn't genuine in almost any aspect and is constantly lying as much as possible. So of course his audience isn't going to show him any sort of respect because he doesn't show them any. And speaking of caring about the quality of a piece of content, I apologize that this video is a little shorter than the normal ones that I try to do. There was originally an entire second clip that we were going to take a look at, but unfortunately for all of us, I messed up cutting it up. So instead of just using a terrible clip that didn't make any sense, I decided to cut the entire thing. So again, apologies. But of course, I want to shout out everybody who watched this video regardless, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other detractor content and dive deeper into that. Snortags.